Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome in to 12 News Connected. Jacob Albrock, Dylan Domingue here with you. We're going to give you some election coverage here, Campaign 2026, and we'll kind of be here with you on the stream and on our social media channels all throughout the evening.
Yep.
We've got Dr. Neil Allen, a Wichita State political science professor, who's going to join us as well, help us break down some of what we're seeing, understand the constitutional amendment, the ramifications, a lot of the local races he's going to have good perspective on. And of course, Dylan, we're going to go through a lot of numbers here for people.
We have a lot of races to go through. Of course, the polls close at 7 o'clock. It is just around 7:20 right now, and we're just getting that early batch of votes starting to come in.
Yeah, so we wanted to first come at you when we had some results, and we do have some results. And we would invite you, KWCH.com has those results. The KWCH 12 News app has those results. We'll have them here, and then we'll, of course, have them on air for you as well. So you're getting kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the newsroom on a night like this, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for us. We love election nights. It
is a busy night.
It's a busy night.
To say the least.
There's pizza.
Yeah, there's always election night pizza.
And we have some of that, too. So we're excited. So we're going to do that. So first, Dylan, let's jump right in because we did just get a dump. But now what we should have, and somebody behind me can yell at us if this isn't right, we should have early voting numbers, right?
Yeah.
And then we already got some Sedgwick County numbers.
The first batch for the Sedgwick County numbers, and we're getting word there, too. It's really one of the earliest times we've gotten it this quickly from Sedgwick County. And we heard from Laura Rainwater today. She said it's been pretty smooth, all things considered. Yep. The way this election process has played out so far, it's been smooth. Not a lot of hiccups for them.
Smooth, a big turnout.
Yeah.
Maybe not as big as when we had the value them both amendment, but still big for a primary.
She said coming into today they had 10%, and that jumped significantly. But of course, all eyes right now on the race for governor. Kansas will have a new governor, as Laura Kelly will not be in office anymore. So we're taking a look at the early numbers right now.
And a reminder, this is a primary, so the candidates leading here are going to go on to the general election in November.
Yeah, so 7 on the Republican side for Governor. Ty Masterson leading the way right now, 37% of the vote. Again, the votes estimated in right now, less than 10%. So take these numbers, of course, right now with a grain of salt. But these early numbers, 37% for Ty Masterson. On the Democratic side, Ethan Corson, who Laura Kelly did endorse, leading the way right now, a slight edge over Sidney Holscher.
Not anymore. So you just got a lot of update there.
Yeah,
That's how close that one is.
Yeah, so that race right now, very close between Sidney and Ethan. Of course, a lot of other races that we're following too. We've been talking about races, but one thing that every voter had on the primary election ballot this year, the constitutional amendment for the state Supreme Court. A vote yes for this would allow voters to be able to decide who they want to sit on the Kansas Supreme Court, the judges that they want. A vote no would keep the system that is currently in place, where a commission selects 3 judicial candidates and then a governor picks that. Right now, it is no leading the way. Vote no at 56%. But again, as we said, a lot of other races here.
That's not a lot of results on that one.
Yeah, so that one's still, we will have plenty more numbers and plenty more votes coming in with that. But again, a lot of other races right now, talking about Senate for congressional seats, representative as well for all the congressional seats in Kansas.
Roger Marshall did have a challenge in his primary, Pond Naramore. Marshall has a pretty sizable lead there. And then we'll see. Adam Hamilton, we've seen some money spent with that campaign. A lot of candidates there on that Democratic side. He has that commanding early. It is early, but that's a lot of votes in some of these Senate races, which we know go statewide, of course.
And I think we're seeing right now is you have a lot of the incumbents, right? Roger Marshall, we're going to go down there to Tracy Mann. We'll keep going with Ron Estes, Derek Schmidt, and then we also see with Sharice Davids as well. And you're seeing just for the incumbents in this role.
Those have already been called.
Yeah, I mean, so what these numbers are already trending towards is the incumbents have had a pretty early lead in so far in this race. And again, you see 2 right here popping up. Those races are already being called.
Yeah, and as we're going to have, again, a primary. And just for everybody's sake, in a primary in Kansas, because this is different state to state, you must be affiliated to vote.
We've had questions about this.
Yeah.
We've had some questions about this today.
It's changed, I believe. So where I'm from, Dylan, in Texas, it is a totally different primary setup.
Yes.
And so I think that we've had emails and calls. People get confused. They want to vote in one or the other. You do have the option to register at the polls and vote then in that primary. That can happen. Now, if you remain unaffiliated, though, the only thing on your ballot was that constitutional amendment. That was it. That's the only thing you could have voted for tonight.
We had someone reach out to us and say they were registered as one party, and then they went and said, but I actually like a candidate for a different party, but I could not vote for them. That is why For the
closed
primary,
primary.
it is closed. For the general election, that is when you'll be able to vote on all the races.
And it's interesting. Different states do different things. There's a split all across the country. So if you went out today, that your ballot was different probably than your neighbor's ballot or whatever.
Yeah, and again, if you go on a KBCH website right now for the election headquarters, you will see all the different races, right? And there are a lot of them.
Bunch of them, yeah.
State House, of course, we're talking about county commissions. There was another one I did want to point to. Again, we'll scroll down to it. I know it can do a click here. This is a race that I'll be following too. It's the El Dorado 1% sales tax because it has to do with supporting Susan B. Allen Hospital. We've been talking about rural healthcare being a major crisis here in the state of Kansas right now. Susan B. Allen basically asking for help from the voters to get some of financial assistance. A 1% sales tax right now up for the vote in El Dorado. We'll be seeing as those numbers come in as well because sales tax, of course, it's a big topic we hear, and of course a lot of voters.
There's several of them on this ballot.
There are, and so especially when it comes to healthcare, this is a very big one. So that's another key race another key vote we'll be looking at tonight.
Take that again. We don't have results in on that one, which probably tells us we haven't seen results in from Butler County yet. So look, these are very early numbers. A lot of these are early vote counting. A lot of these are just counties reporting. Not every race on this list involves statewide races. But we do have lots of statewide races. That's where you're seeing those bigger numbers. The two that are most high profile, of course, are these governor races, Dylan. And we see Ty Masterson right now at 40% in a crowded field.
Yeah.
The Democrat side, though, now we may be in for a long night on that Democratic side based on these early results because you have almost a dead even split right now between Cindy Holscher and Ethan Corson.
We're looking at the percentages rise right now. It's 44.6 for Sydney and 43.3 for Ethan. Then when you really look at the actual numbers of it, Sydney right now has a lead, but it's only by about 800 votes.
Not very many.
Right, and there are going
to be a lot of votes on that. That's a statewide race.
Yeah,
so
and
26,000 isn't much.
And we're less than 30% of that all coming in. Again, we're not even at 7:30 yet. The polls just closed at 7 o'clock, so we're just starting to see these numbers really start coming in. That'll, of course, happen over the next hour, 2 hours, maybe even longer for some of these races as well. But as those numbers come in, we'll have a better idea of where some of these races stand.
Take a second here to show you this, too. So you likely joined us. Maybe you got a push alert on the 12 News app. If you can't stay tuned or you need to be on the go, you can always check that app to get these results. They are available to you right there as well at the palm of your hand. This is interesting. I'm seeing this. We're 15% on some of these races, 27 on. It can't, just a hunch here, Dylan. We've done a lot of these. Just a hunch. I feel like this is going quick.
I don't want to jinx it, right? And we heard again.
We'll get Dr. Neil Allen.
We heard Laura Rainwater say it already. Things have gone very smooth.
Let me knock on wood.
Yeah, and it's like we're all trying to find the desk right now where we can do it because again, you always hope for a night to go like this.
Yeah.
Again, we've seen election nights where you're here till 2 o'clock in the morning.
There's a lot of producers behind us who would like to just tidy that right up, head it onto the air. But we have a lot to cover tonight. So let's take a quick break here. Our first break of our live coverage here on 12 News Connected. We're going to get Dr. Neil Allen in. He can explain some history on some of these, what he's looking for tonight, the expectations there as an analyst for us tonight. We'll do that. We'll have some cut-ins live on the air. You'll be able to kind of tune in double duty and have some fun with that as well. And of course, we're kind of counting you down here until we get to our 9 o'clock newscast. We have reporters all over the state. So victory speeches, concession speeches, all those parties, we will have all that coverage. If any of this goes really fast, Dylan, we can even bring those people in here with us on 12 News Connected.
Well, and again, we're already seeing some races be called. I don't anticipate that happening at a lot of where our reporters are at tonight this early. But again, anything can happen on an election night, and so something changes, of course, we'll have all of that coverage ready for you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dr. Neil Allen will be in with Dylan to discuss some of these races. Stick around on 12 News Connected.
right, welcome back into our extended election coverage. Of course, tonight is primary election night here in the state of Kansas. Polls close at 7 o'clock, and so it's just 7:30 right now, but we are starting to see some of the early voting numbers coming in. We'll have the website, kwch.com. You can look at all the current updated voting numbers, but right now we are joined with Dr. Neil Allen, Wichita State, to break down some of these numbers and some of the key races we're seeing. So first, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll look at it right now. Obviously, we're getting the early set of votes come in. How much do we really take in terms of, when we look at those numbers, but you only see 15%? How much do you really look into that right now?
Well, you really have to be careful because you don't always know, especially if you're just looking at the top line numbers, where the vote is coming from. In Kansas, there's a usual pattern that Northeast Kansas tends to report votes first, especially from Douglas County and Lawrence. So that might get you the idea that the electorate is a more left-leaning electorate than it really is. And also, there's different methods of voting that get counted at different times. And so you have to be careful when you just see 15% because you don't necessarily know what kind of votes those are. And also you have to look pretty granularly at the Secretary of State website to figure out where they're coming from.
For an election like this, when we have a constitutional amendment, but more importantly, we have the congressional seats for the state of Kansas, and we are electing a new governor. Laura Kelly will not be the governor of Kansas come next cycle, of course. We'll have a new governor here. What kind of election turnout and voter turnout are you expecting here for this type?
Well, the turnout for a primary election like we're having in August is always going to be lower than a general election in November. But I would be surprised if we have a turnout that's as high as we did 4 years ago, and that's because the Value Them Both amendment about abortion rights drove a gigantic turnout. And I think we'll see something smaller than that. But we have a lot to vote for in Kansas this year because there's a constitutional amendment about how to elect judges. The Republicans have an active primary for governor. Democrats have active primaries for both governor and Senate. And so there's a lot more things to vote for that'll motivate voters than we'd have in a normal Kansas primary.
So if you're watching right now on our live stream, you are seeing the results, and we have the governor race pulled up because that is the biggest one that we are following right now. Again, this is a primary, so it's Republican candidates sorting it out, and it's Democratic candidates as well. 7 Republican candidates for governor this year. Ty Masterson, of course, leading the way right now with 40% of the votes, but we are 16.5% estimated of the votes coming in. So still very early here. But on the Democratic side, from the very beginning, we have seen that this has been very competitive between Sidney Holscher and Ethan Corson. Of course, Ethan Corson, or Governor Kelly did endorse Ethan Corson for governor on the Democratic side. But any numbers right now stick out to you in terms of the governor races?
Well, it's expected that Masterson's the favorite. He's been endorsed by President Trump, who, while President Trump's popularity nationwide and likely in Kansas is lower than it has been in most of his this term and his first term, Trump still is the most popular nationwide figure in the Republican Party. And so since he endorsed Masterson, and Masterson has the support of almost the entire establishment of the Republican Party in the state, the fact that he's winning with numbers so far is not surprising. For the Democrats, I thought going in that Holscher would be the favorite. If Corson does pull it out, it's not terribly surprising. His endorsement by Governor Kelly is his best asset. But Holscher fits the moment for Democrats more, that she's a much more progressive, much more left-leaning figure. She's turned against data centers and even the state incentives for the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium recently. And so if the pattern that we've seen in other states follows in Kansas, then Holscher will pull it out.
If you can speak on the Democratic side, obviously right now Ty Masterson's leading the way for the Republican side, but Democrat very, very competitive there. Is that a good sign for them going forward for a general election, that they have a competitive race right now between two candidates?
Well, for Democrats, historically in Kansas, it's a good sign that they actually have viable candidates that are willing to run for pretty much every statewide race. This race for governor has gotten very nasty, and especially recently, and whoever wins is going to have to do some work to patch up, with their colleague. And also Holscher and Corson actually serve in the state senate together, but contested primaries do give campaigns the chance to test their messages, and but for the Democrats, they've been able to be more successful in the last 8 years than they've been in modern times in Kansas because of Governor Kelly's popularity. But whether she can transfer that to a candidate in the fall is still up to be decided.
A lot of big races we are following right now. We do want to highlight one as well. It's not a race, but it's a constitutional amendment that everyone can vote for. That is for how we select Supreme Court justices. What we're seeing right now is 71% vote no so far. I want to talk about the background behind this one. Of course,
Right.
Kansas, the last 70 years we've been operating under the same way in terms of how we select a Supreme Court justice to that seat. It's a commission that picks the finalists, basically, top 3 finalists, and then the governor picks it as well. This number very overwhelmingly voting no to keep this current system we have right now.
Right. I mean, you did a good job describing an extraordinarily complicated amendment vote that we have. I mean, when I voted today,
It's so long. You turn the back of your ballot, and it is the full page.
Right.
And it's a lot of words. It's very confusing.
and that we have an appointment system that has usually been called the Missouri Plan, although Missouri might actually change it as well. But there's a nonpartisan commission. They give the governor 3 names, and then she or he appoints one of the 3. If the amendment passes, all 7 spots on the Kansas Supreme Court will be elected. It's not clear yet how they would be elected. The legislature would have to figure out the timing during the year, and also whether they would be run on partisan tickets or not. But it would be a huge change to how we select judges, and it would. And if yes is the winner and the amendment passes, likely the Kansas Supreme Court would turn to a much more conservative body. But also, you can never tell with a judge who gets onto a court, because all judges will take their legal work seriously.
Yeah. And again, right now we're looking at that. Overwhelmingly, the vote is no for that. One look through our KWCH website right now through the voting numbers, there is a lot of races we're following. Of course, we're seeing already some of the races being called. Ron Esses for the congressional seat being favored there, projected to win. Derek Schmidt as well, Eric Jenkins, Sharice Davids as well. So we'll have all this information as we keep going. But real quickly, what are some of the other big races that you were looking at for this?
Well, when you look at congressional races in the Kaywood coverage area, the one that is competitive is the 4th District Democratic primary, but that is likely a race to see who gets to lose to Congressman Estes in the fall, because the 4th District is strongly Republican. And locally, we have some very interesting state legislative races, particularly in the Democratic primary, where you have a couple of incumbents with very strong challengers.
As you mentioned, the congressional seat for District 4 on the Democratic side, Katie Tyndall with 68% of the votes right now over Chris Carmichael. That's 42% of the estimated votes coming in. So as we said, we have a lot of votes to get through for the rest of the night, but we will have more coverage as we continue. Dr. Allen will be here, of course, throughout the night to break down some of these races as the numbers continue to come in more. And of course, we will have more during our cut-ins, and we'll have more on our streaming services.
All right, welcome back in here, everybody, to 12 News Connected. Jacob Albrecht with you in the newsroom. Behind the scenes, we mentioned earlier, as we're continuing our Campaign 2026 coverage, in about 2 minutes, we're going to do a cut-in live over the air on KWCH, so bear with us. It might look a little strange, but production will take control of this, and we're going to do that cut-in, then we'll be right back here with you. We'll get Dylan back in. We'll get Dr. Allen back in. But while we're waiting, we can throw up these results for you real quick for just a couple of minutes and take a look. 18% reporting. I know one of the big hotly contested races right now is the governor's side on the GOP side and the Democrat side, quite frankly. And Ty Masterson right now does have a big lead over the field. We don't know what, I wonder what that percentage is going to need to be with a crowded field. That'll be interesting to see. But if you look on the Democrat side, you've got Cindy Holscher and Ethan Corson in almost a dead even split right now with 35% already in and cast. The constitutional amendment, another wide-ranging statewide race we're watching, has the biggest turnout of any of these so far. In the statewide, in the no, with a commanding lead right now of that, 71%, just 22% tabulated, though, and you have to remember these come in from different counties and different regions and different areas and pockets of populations. But we'll take you down through some of these other statewide races here real quick, as we have about a minute. Roger Marshall is in the lead, the incumbent, of course. To see if he goes through, who would challenge him on the Democrat side. Adam Hamilton is your leader, almost 40% tabulated on that side of the ballot. All the incumbents in the other races for the federal seats are ahead or called, as Ron Estes and Derek Schmidt have been called. So we'll take you back through some of these in just a minute. Bear with us here. Again, we're going to come back and we're going to get ready for a cut-in on KWCH here in about 20 seconds. So I'm going to go quiet here. They'll cut that. We'll do that real quick, and then we'll come right back here with you on 12 News Connected. Hang tight, everybody, there. Just a minute here. And welcome into this 12 News election update. Jacob Albrecht here in the newsroom. A look at some of the major races we're following tonight. In the race for governor on the Republican side, Ty Masterson, about 40% right now of the vote, followed by Philip Sarnecki with 20%, Vicki Schmidt at 18%, Scott Schwab would be next at 12%. For Democrats, Cindy Holscher leading Ethan Corson. This one neck and neck, 45% to 44. A long way to go in that race. And on the ballot issue for the Supreme Court, just under 20% of the votes in, but no with a commanding 72% of the votes so far. Stay tuned. We'll have more coverage throughout the night. And we are clear there, so we're back here on 12 News Connected. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us on that here just a little bit. We're going to get some things reset here. We're going to take a real quick break, just about a minute. We'll bring Dylan back in. We'll bring Dr. Allen back in, and they'll get you some updates on these races. So hang tight with us here for just a second. Give us about a minute and a half, and we'll be right back on the air with you here on 12 News Connected. a second. Okay, and here we go.
All right, welcome back to 12 News Connected, our election special. Of course, it is primary election day here in the state of Kansas. We are here with Dr. Allen as we are going to break down some of the numbers that we're seeing so far. 7:45. The polls closed about 45 minutes ago, so we're starting to see maybe about a fifth of the way of the vote starting to come in. We're seeing about 20%, but 35%. I mean, the numbers are a little different, of course. It depends on the different counties. Submit the votes as well. Right here on kwch.com, you can go to it. There you can see the full election results as we are getting them. These results are coming in about every minute or two, I believe. They are updating, so we are getting the latest updates from the Secretary of State website. We have Dr. Allen to go through some of this right now, and of course, the big race, the one that's at the top of the screen here, is the race for governor, the primary race for governor, so the Republican side and the Democratic side. From the beginning, from the early numbers, Ty Masterson has led the way. It is still under 20% of the vote on the Republican side, but Ty Masterson with 40% of the vote. The next closest, Philip Sarnicki with 20%. On the governor side, Sidney Holscher with a slight lead right now over Ethan Corson. But when you look at the actual vote numbers, less than 1,000 votes separate the two so far. Let's start on the Democratic side, Dr. Allen. When you see that right there, that is a very close race, and that looks like it'll be that way for the rest of the night.
Well, you know, that might depend a bit on geography as well. That there's not a lot of Democratic voters in rural Kansas, but you know, they could frankly swing either way, because a lot of those are voters where, you know, you wouldn't necessarily know how they would vote, because if you're in, you know, rural northwest Kansas, you're probably not putting a Holscher or Corson sign in your yard. But I'm frankly a little surprised that Corson is running as well as he has. There's only been one public poll that had Holscher way ahead. Her profile is the type that tends to be most successful in Democratic primaries these days. But Governor Kelly is the most popular Democrat of a generation, and she has supported Corson as strongly as she possibly could, and has made it very clear that she thinks Holscher is too far to the left to win a statewide race in Kansas. But we should remember that even though Kansas is strongly Republican, in governor races the minority party does better, which is why Kelly has won twice, even though the Democrats haven't gotten close for Senate. And you know, the national environment looks like it's going to be very, at least anti-Republican, if not pro-Democratic. And so we'll probably see some surprising Democratic victories in November. But it's just a long way to go for Democrats in Kansas.
What are some of the races that we could see maybe here in the state of Kansas that could go that way?
Well, I mean, the governor's race is one for statewide. I wouldn't be surprised if the closest race statewide is Attorney General. We have the same two candidates that ran 4 years ago. Attorney General Kobach narrowly defeated Democratic Attorney Chris Mann. That Kobach has had a relatively less controversial, considering his career term as Attorney General. But if there is a Democratic wave in the fall, I think there's a possibility that Kobach could lose. And there is a lot of races that matter for Kansas politics, but the ones that frankly I think are going to matter the most are at the state house level, because all state house seats are up for election, and Democrats are currently just a few seats below the threshold of 1/3 that would allow them to block constitutional amendments and also to have a lot of effect on the agenda in Topeka. And the real action is going to be for November there, but we have several contested primaries. And you know, for the state house in Kansas, you know, the pay is better than it used to be. It was around $26,000 a year. Now it's more like around $56,000 a year. But it's a really tough job, and the fact that we have a lot of contested primaries is frankly pretty surprising. In the Wichita area, the one that I've been watching the most is that in the 83rd district.
And we have it right here at the center of your screen. I'll circle it here. But one of the candidates is Brandon Whipple, the former mayor of Wichita.
That's right. Now, Whipple recently moved into the district. He has long lived in the south part of Wichita, but he and his wife bought a house in the northeast part of Wichita. That's a district, the 83rd, that if you go back a decade was evenly divided between the parties. It's moved pretty strongly to the Democrats, might be safe now for Democrats. And Whipple moved into the district and is challenging a longtime incumbent, Henry Helgerson. And that happens to be my district where I live. And I don't think I've ever seen so much mail. I mean, we get more election mail than we get junk mail these days, just around that race. And it is somewhat in a somewhat similar race. The 84th district has an incumbent, Ford Carr, who is a Democrat that has, I believe, been in for 3 terms, and he's a Democrat that is more likely to vote with Republicans than a lot of the rest of his caucus, and he has a very strong challenge from Benita Gooch.
Right now you see the numbers. It's about 45% of the votes coming in. Benita Gooch with 68% of the votes, going up, running up to 69%. Ford Carr only with 31% of the votes there.
Right, and it's an interesting race because Ford Carr is relatively new to elected office, but Benita Gooch is from one of the most important families in African American politics in Kansas, particularly in the Wichita area. Her father, Rip Gooch, was a Tuskegee Airman veteran, was an elected legislator, and Benita, has been running the Community Voice African American newspaper for a couple of decades.
So again, we've been keeping a close eye on the governor's race, of course, the congressional seats, all the state house seats that we're seeing as well. There are other things that are popping up on the ballot. Of course, if you went cast your vote, you likely saw them. The constitutional amendment's one of them right now. We'll pull up those numbers in just a bit because we have seen that is a vote no specific. It's overwhelmingly right now a vote no for that. But there's another one we see here in the center of the screen. It's the El Dorado 1% sales tax. And why that one's so important is because if voters do approve that, the money there would be to go towards Susan B. Allen Memorial Hospital. Right now, of course, Kansas in a rural health crisis, many hospitals at risk of closing. So that question said, should the city of El Dorado impose a 1% citywide sales tax for 7 years? That would begin January 1st of next year to support the hospital. Right now, 76, running up to 77% of the votes there say yes. So that appears to be good. That is 96% reporting. So that looks like that will go through as well. But let's go through some of these other races because, as we mentioned, we have the Estes Watch Party. We are talking about the congressional seats right now. As we have on our KWCH website, the congressional seat for District 4, Ron Estes on the Republican side already has the check right to it. It's in gold, saying that he is favored to win that one. Of course, getting 77% of the vote there. So, but looking at some of the congressional seats right here, take me through what you're looking at. What are you seeing in terms of this? Because a lot of the races are being called here, especially for the incumbents.
Well, it is notable that incumbents are having challengers. And in Kansas, of the 4 seats that we have, it would be very surprising if any of the incumbents lost, and either in November or in the primary. That Congressman Estes is the congressman from the 4th district that is mostly the Wichita metropolitan area. He's been in since the 2017 special election. Except for that election, has never had a significant challenge from a Democrat, and this is probably not going to be the year. That it is notable the Democrats have 4 candidates that are running. At least 2 of them have run campaigns that have raised, credible amounts of money, have done credible amounts of media and other campaigning, and how those races are important. Like if you look at the 4th district Democratic primary, it shows that the Democrats are more viable in this area than they have been in some in some years. And it's important for a party, even if they're going to lose a race like that for Congress, to have a candidate running a real campaign to help candidates above them on the ballot, like running for governor, and especially to help candidates down the ballot, like running for state representative.
So speaking of the 4th congressional seat, like Jake mentioned at the top of us starting to stream here, we have reporters all over the state. We are following some of these races. We have reporters that are ready, that are on standby for this. We'll take you to some of those watch parties coming up when we come back from the break.
All right, welcome back in here, everybody, to the breaking news desk in the KWCH newsroom on 12 News Connected. Jacob Albrecht here. We'll get Dylan and Dr. Allen here in just a minute, but we did want to take you out to one of our watch parties. We've got Brock Wilson at Ty Masterson and Ron Estes' watch party. As we mentioned, the race has been called in favor of the incumbent Ron Estes. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take you live out to Brock Wilson for a report there. Brock?
It's one of the first decisions we've had on primary election night, Jacob. Ron Estes just announced has beat out Frank McCollum in the U.S. House district, or the U.S. House race for Kansas 4th Congressional District. We're at Ron Estes and Ty Masterson's watch party at the Cozine Live Event Center in East Wichita. They actually just made that announcement here live to the crowd. A nice round of applause for the congressman who was the front runner in that race for the 4th Congressional District. Of course, we are still closely watching the race for the Republican primary for the governor of Kansas. Again, this is Ty Masterson's base camp. He's going up against a number of Republican candidates. We'll have check-in throughout the night to see how Masterson is doing in this race. Of course, we have crews in Kansas City checking in on Phil Sarnicki as well, and I think we're actually just about to get another announcement here from the team. So I'll send it back to you, Jacob, and we'll have another update a little bit later on.
Brock, thank you very much there for that report, and we will continue to check in with Brock and some of our other reporters. We do have them spread out all over the place. Let's get you a quick update before we take a break here again and bring back in Dylan and Dr. Allen to dig into, not everybody saw all of these items or candidates on their ballot. Remember, this is just a primary, and in Kansas it is a closed primary. So if you were an unaffiliated voter or affiliated with one side, you don't see the other side. And there are some statewide races as well. So Brock was there. He mentioned he is also at the Ty Masterson party. Now, we may need to get Brock on in just a minute again, because it looks like our site has just called it for Masterson. So that may be the announcement they were making there that Brock was mentioning. So we'll get Brock back if that is in case if they are calling it there. We have called it on our website though. AP has called that too. So AP is calling Ty Masterson as the Republican candidate. Lucky for us, that's where we have Brock Wilson. We can check back with him in just a minute. On the Democrat side, it may be a long night. Take a look at this, 37% in, and we are at a 43.5 run right now. So that one a long way to go between Cindy Holscher and Ethan Corson. Dr. Allen with some interesting commentary on that one. We'll bring him back in just a few minutes. The no vote right now, it has not been called at only 26% reporting, but the no vote is commanding a lead right now over the yes vote. In some of the other races we have mentioned, it will be Roger Marshall taking on Adam Hamilton in the general election for that Senate seat, and the incumbents doing well so far in the U.S. House seats. Tracy Mann, not called yet, but a commanding lead. We, of course, just mentioned that Ron Estes has been called. Derek Schmidt has been called. Sharice Davis has been called as well. Davids, I should say, excuse me. So we have a lot of those. And then the local races, we have plenty of those as well. And we'll have Dylan and Dr. Allen take you through some of those other ballot initiatives that are on in some other counties. So again, the news of the last couple of minutes here, Ty Masterson has been named the Republican candidate for governor in the November general election. We do not know who he will be taking on just yet. That Democratic primary in the governor's race is very, very tight at the moment. So one thing I do want to tell you, the first place you'll see any information is with us on our 12 News app, right at the palm of your hand. We've sent you push alerts to find us here. We appreciate you jumping in with us behind the scenes a little bit on election night coverage. We'll get you all those results as races are called. We will get those to you. I see Brock Wilson, so let us get him queued up here in just a second, and we will get another report. I'm wondering if they called that race out there as well. So as we get him tied into the feed here, give us just one more minute as we get Brock ready to rock and roll here. And see if that is indeed the announcement we made. Let's go back out to Brock now.
Yeah, Jacob, I mentioned that we were just about to get another announcement, and that was the big announcement of the night. Ty Masterson has secured the Republican nomination for governor in Kansas. That was the announcement on the stage just a moment ago, right as I tossed it back to you. And that was probably the biggest applause we're going to get all night. There's several Republican candidates here that this watch party is watching for, Ty Masterson and Ron Estes. Those were two of the bigger candidates people were keeping an eye on tonight, just back to back now, hearing that they have won the nominations for their respective races in the 2026 election. Ty Masterson still has not made an appearance. We're waiting for that. But once he does show up, we'll make sure to get coverage of that. We'll have all kinds of video and reaction from the candidates as well. So for now, Jacob, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Brock, appreciate it. Very well timed there by us, I guess. Ron Estes and Ty Masterson both called. So Brock's going to gather there on site and get us some coverage and continue that. We appreciate his reporting there. But they have called the race there. We've called the race. The AP has called the race for Ty Masterson as we wait. Again, likely a long night to see who he will face in the general election between Cindy Holscher and Ethan Corson. All right, so let's recap here a little bit. We know Ty Masterson's in. We know Ron Estes is in. You heard that from Brock. All the incumbents are doing well. We're going to get you an update on all these initiatives. The no is leading by a lot over the yes so far, but only 26% reporting. Nothing has been called in that race. We've got plenty to react to here, and we've got Dr. Neil Allen, political science professor at Wichita State, here to help us do it. He'll rejoin Dylan right on the other side of a break here on 12 News Connected. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Much more to come.
All right, welcome back to 12 News Connected. Dylan Doming here with Dr. Neil Allen with Wichita State University. We're breaking down some of the election results. We just heard from Brock Wilson, who's at the watch party for Ty Masterson and Ron Estes. Both of those races have been called. So we do want to show you the current standings right now with where everything's at with the election. Of course, all those results on our website. We have called several of them. The AP has called several of them. Let's get you to it because they are significant. First, GOP for governor, Ty Masterson has been called with 40% of the vote there. Philip Sarnecki second, but Ty Masterson has been called to represent the Republicans in the general election for governor. On the Democratic side, it is very close still. Sidney Holscher with a slightly, it's about 2,000 votes over Ethan Corson, but let's go through some of the other ones. The amendment that was just called for the state Supreme Court, no, overwhelmingly. We'll break that down too in just a bit. Congressional seats. On the Republican side, Roger Marshall will face off against Adam Hamilton for the U.S. Senate. For the House, Tracy Mann has been called. Ron Estes is the winner. Katie Tindell for the U.S. congressional seat for District 4 on the Democratic side. For District 2, Derek Schmidt, Eric Jenkins, Sharice Davids, and Jennifer Day as well. But first,
side note real quick, when we see Ron Estes go up for his speech, we'll take that.
okay, sounds good. Of course, we are at the watch party for Ty Masterson and Ron Estes. So again, if you just heard there from Jacob, when we get that, when we hear from them, we'll take them as well. But we're here with Dr. Allen. We just went through some of the results. Significance of the GOP primary for governor.
Well, you know, it's not surprising that Senator Masterson is one. I'm a little surprised at the size of his margin if it holds up, and also that none of the other candidates were able to break out at all. What we have is Philip Sarnecki, who spent a whole lot of money and has a kind of business profile that ought to work fairly well in a Republican primary. Vicki Schmidt and Scott Schwab are both multiple time statewide elected officials. And Schmidt in particular has been the high vote getter several times, and they did make a dent in this race because Masterson was Trump endorsed, and the establishment of the Republican Party united behind him. And also, if he wins, it could be the first governor from the Wichita area in over 100 years. And because depending on how you count it, the state hasn't elected someone who was based in the Wichita area since the 1920s.
For Wichitans, is that significant for them, the historical aspect behind that?
I'm not sure, and also Senator Masterson, whose district is mostly Andover, although it does include some of the city of Wichita, that what's going to be interesting is him raising his profile on a statewide level to an electorate in November, for whom a lot of those people who are going to turn in November will have a general kind of thin positive view of Governor Kelly, but likely a negative view of the Democratic Party. And it'll be interesting to see whether Masterson is going to be more effective than the last two Republican candidates, who on paper had much stronger electoral backgrounds.
So if you see me looking up right now, I'm waiting to see. We are, again, at Ron Estes' watch party and Ty Masterson's watch party. Both of those races have been called. If we can actually just show you what the live shot of that looks like right now.
You might catch some audio here.
Okay, you might get some audio. But this is them at the podium speaking right now. Once we hear from Ron Estes or Ty Masterson, of course, we will take that live here. Let's go through the congressional races as we get ready to toss to them. What stands out to you as you see a lot of these races have been called, and now we know what the general election is going to look like?
Well, at the federal level, that I would be very surprised if any incumbent loses. That Kansas has not elected a Democrat to the Senate since 1932, I believe. That's not because we're the most Republican state in the union, but a Democrat really hasn't gotten closer than, I believe, 15 percentage points in recent years. Adam Hamilton has the potential to make the race much closer, but Senator Marshall starts as a heavy favorite. I would be surprised if any of the federal races are switch parties in the fall. But The judicial referendum is really astonishing if the margin holds up, and because the same electorate that is supporting Senator Masterson and Congressman Estes, a lot of those voters must have voted no on the referendum for the referendum to be failing as big as it has.
Let's go through that one right there, because the constitutional amendment, of course, appeared on everybody's ballot for the primary. If you went to vote, this was on it, and if you turn the ballot around, it took up a full page. It was a lot of information. It could be very confusing. A vote yes for the constitutional amendment would basically have said that the Kansas voters can decide and elect the judges that get to sit on the Kansas Supreme Court. A vote no would do with the current system. So it would stick with the current system we have right now, which has been the way for the last 70 years, where there is a commission that takes judicial candidates, picks 3, and then from there the governor is the one who picks who gets to sit on the Kansas Supreme Court. But again, vote no there overwhelmingly with the votes. More than 143,000 have voted no, and that's just 31% of the vote. But I mean, it is significant from what we've seen so far. But this has been a system that Kansas has operated on for 70 years now. We've heard that maybe there is a need for some change. Clearly, this was not it. The Kansas voters spoke for this. For those maybe advocating for some sort of change to the constitutional amendment in terms of how the Kansas Supreme Court is selected, what could be their next step here?
Well, the most important next step, if you want to change the composition of the Kansas Supreme Court, is to elect a different governor. Because right now we have 6 appointees of Governor Kelly, but if Ty Masterson becomes the governor, then he'll have a chance to appoint new people probably.
Jacob, are they speaking right now? Okay, so Ron Estes is at the podium speaking right now at his watch party. Again, his race has been called. We're going to take him live here.
As we all work together and support the basic same goals, but we want to pick our favorites, and so sometimes it's cousin against cousin as we go through the primary process. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we make the country better and the state better. I want to thank you in general for selecting me as the nominee for the 4th District Congress from the Republican Party. It's an honor for me to be able to serve you, and it's an honor to be able to serve in this office, to be part of that. You know, we don't talk about it much, but if you look in the history of the United States, there's only a little over 11,000 people that have ever served in the U.S. House of Representatives. And in Kansas, I think I'm 239th in terms of the people that have been nominated and selected to serve in the House. So it's certainly an honor. And so, you know, as we go through, I have a list here, a little bit of, I want to talk about some thanks for people. First of all, I want to thank Ashley and Caroline and Hillard Cozine for letting us use the event. You know, I also want to thank my campaign staff for all the work that they've done to help support me and support the 4th District, including our campaign manager, Alex Oakley, Debbie Looper, Roman Rodriguez, and Ashley Looper. And also this summer, we've had some great help. I mean, Amara Garfield helped, and we've had 4 incredible interns, Caleb Crowley, James Eagle, Silas Kelton, and David Wartenberger. So please thank them as well. And I also want to thank my finance team, Dr. Lucinda Rabin, my treasurer, and Deanne and Chris Graham for making sure that we get a positive pro-growth, limited government message out across the constituents in the 4th District. Yep. And I want to support and thank my staff, both staff here in Wichita as well as the staff in D.C. And some of them are here tonight, Tamara Woods and Lexi Howell, Lillian Miller, Callisti Mandamus, and Pierre Pondre Barek. Please give them a round of applause as well. And of course, if you couldn't tell, thanking Susan and our kids, Brent, Laura, and Grace, for all the support that they've given me. You know, midterms are kind of sold as it's a referendum of the party that's in the White House. And while there's some truth to that, it's also a contrast of two visions for the United States of America. I mean, what we've seen in the primary process of country is that one party is focused on America First policies, while the other party is looking at the extreme left and looking at completely turning over the opportunities and the freedoms and the choices that we've had for 250 years. You know, as we move beyond the primaries and unify behind our nominees, we're facing a contrast election, and we can't ignore what's at stake. I mean, the differences between the Republicans and Democrats are pretty strong. I mean, it's kind of a comparison of Kansas common sense versus crazy communist in terms of the ideas. I mean, if you talk about Republicans, you think about Republicans are for having a safe and secure border, making sure that we protect the country and we reduce the crime rate, we reduce the number of deaths from fentanyl and other drugs. If you talk about life, I mean, Republicans are the party that support life from conception to natural death. Republicans are the party that believe in biology, and that we don't believe men should compete against women in women's sports. We're the party of liberty. I mean, we believe in religious freedom. You know, the Democrats have taken God out of their platform, and that's not the party. That's not what we want for our country. And we're going to continue to be a common sense party to focus on how do we make things better.
All right, that is Ron Estes right there speaking as he is celebrating his win in the primary election for the state of Kansas. We will, of course, tune in to that if we hear any more. Of course, Ty Masterson at the same watch party as well. So if we hear any more with that, of course, we will update as well. Of course, tonight, 9 o'clock on the KSCW, 10 o'clock on KWCH, we'll have all of this reaction. We'll have more sound throughout the night as tonight goes as well. But Dylan Doming here with Dr. Allen from Wichita State. We're continuing to break some of this down. We are learning a little bit more tonight because a lot of these races we're seeing have already been called, but Sedgwick County, of course, one of the largest counties in the state of Kansas, only 2 unofficial results have come in so far. Is that surprising?
Not really, and also we should remember that when the Associated Press calls an election, that's a prediction. And so elections are not finalized till the canvass that occurs in about 2 weeks. And then in Kansas, we usually have, in contested elections, we'll have some small amount of recounts, possibly for state representative primaries. And so, but it's better to wait and get it right. And also on this particular ballot, the Secretary of State's office is most important. But we have to remember that county election offices do incredible work on election day, and it's much more important that they work to keep the polls open and make sure that all rules and laws are followed than they have people to tell us on election night what we want to know.
We would all like a very easy night where by 8:30 all the races are called, we're done and over with, but that's not the case. And obviously we've seen a good bit of races. Of course, we can go down the list here. We've seen a good bit and have been called so far. Of course, the big one with governor right now on the GOP side, Ty Masterson has been called for Republican. On the Democratic side, that one's still very close, about 2,500 votes now. Separate Cindy Holscher and Ethan Corson. That is the largest gap we've seen, but still a very small gap in the grand scheme of things. 43% of the votes have come in with there. We mentioned earlier, we have reporters all around the state right now as we get you ready for election night with all those votes coming in. We have Cale Chapman. He's at the watch party for Cindy Holscher right now. Again, Cindy Holscher is leading on the Democratic side for governor. Let's check in with Cale Chapman with how things are going at that watch party.
Hey, I'm here in Lenexa at the barn for Cindy Holscher's watch party. Right now, spirits are high. As you can see around me, it is a packed house tonight. Right now, she is leading Ethan Corson by just a couple percentage points, but that has not slowed down the celebration here at all. We just got a small speech from her running mate, Casey Ohabozum. He's a representative from Wichita and, again, is a candidate for lieutenant governor. He just spoke, trying to rally the troops here. The supporters have been pouring in all night, and again, like I said, so far it sees no sign of stopping as she still is in the lead. We will continue to bring in the latest updates and feelings here and pop in as speeches continue throughout the night. Back to you in the studio.
Kale, thank you. As you can imagine, a lot of anticipation tonight. Watch parties all across the state. These candidates seeing the numbers come in. Again, we are seeing races already being called, but some of the ones that are very close, a lot of the tension gets built in those rooms.
Right, and also that there's almost three kinds of election parties. There's the ones when everybody's excited. There's the ones when everybody is concerned, and then there's ones where, except for the candidate and their staff, there's nobody else there. And for the Democrats, for the governor primary, I mean, it would be extremely surprising if anybody would declare victory tonight. And frankly, it would be a bad idea for democracy for them to do that, because when elections are this close, there can be swings based upon what kind of votes come in. And also in Kansas, while our postal voting system is currently basically the same as it was in 2024, a lot of voters might have changed to election day voting instead of mail voting because of uncertainty about how voting by postal mail was going to work. And so, I would be surprised if that race is called this week.
Again, that race very close. Still less than 50% of the estimated votes have come in so far, but Cindy Holscher holds a very, very slight lead. It's 45% to Ethan Corson's 42%. And as you mentioned as well, I think we'll see a better picture when all the numbers come in. It really depends where those votes come in from, though, from around the state.
That's right. And also with Democratic primaries, they're very hard to predict because statewide contested primaries for Democrats are rare. And in this particular race, Governor Kelly has endorsed Senator Corson and worked very hard on his behalf. But Cindy Holscher, like Governor Kelly, is a woman and fits the profile of a new successful Democrat a little bit better. And also, Democrats on the left have been very successful in primaries this year, and so that's a really complicated race to model. But I mean, what I'm really fascinated by tonight is the constitutional amendment.
Let's talk about that one a little bit more too. Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, I expected a very close vote. My guess is it'll probably tighten up as more rural counties will come in tonight and for the next couple of days. But this just shows that a lot of voters have a bias toward no when you ask them to change their state constitution. And also they have a bias toward no if it's hard to understand the question that they're being asked.
And this is just, a little bit behind the scenes. We're looking at those numbers right now. That was called pretty early by our website, which we do model after the AP. But again, it's less than 35% of the votes that have come in so far. So that number could close in later on as some of those votes come in more. But still, overwhelmingly right now, it's no. You said about this mentality of maybe not wanting to change the Constitution. Where does that come from? Because right now, the way that Kansans have a new Supreme Court judge is a 70-year-old system where there is a commission that does that as well.
Well, and what is clearly going on here is that there's been success by the forces that support abortion rights, that support funding for public schools, and who support the kind of decisions that the Kansas Supreme Court has been making over the last couple of decades. And we saw that 4 years ago with the defeat of the Value Them Both Amendment that would have allowed the state legislature to ban abortion as a medical procedure or to heavily regulate it. It was unclear whether that kind of support and the support for public school funding that has been supported by the state Supreme Court over the last couple of decades, whether that would transfer into a vote that was really about process. And it looks like that the no side has been quite successful.
Jacob, when is our next cut-in?
We are not taking that here, so we're
Okay.
clear.
All right. So we will continue here as well. I have two questions for you, Dr. Allen, here, because we want to continue to talk about the constitutional amendment. And again, there is still time for that vote to close a little bit. It has already been called. Vote no has won, and this one is what has been called so far. But because it has not been close, and you just mentioned earlier, you expect that number to be closer. What is the message it's sending with that big of a gap?
Well, the message is, the most simple message is that voters would be saying that they don't want the judiciary to be elected in the same way the legislature or the executive is. Now, we do have judicial elections for trial courts in Kansas, and the current system is connected to the legislature and to the governor. The legislature has very little to say in it, but they would like to have more say, which is one of the reasons why our intermediate court, the Court of Appeals, has been changed to a non-commission selection system. But also, I mean, the effect of this is going to be that Governor Kelly's legacy will continue at the Supreme Court because she has appointed 6 out of the 7 justices.
And just one recently.
Right, and just that was yesterday. And if you talk to conservative activists or Republican legislators, one thing they'll talk about is that Democratic appointees on the state Supreme Court and appointees of previous moderate Republican governors, they will do what you would call strategic retirement. And so a number of those judges have retired in time for Governor Kelly to appoint their replacement. And that it'll be interesting to see what happens if Ty Masterson is the governor next year, because you will have six justices who will have been appointed by the previous Democratic governor, and the Judicial Commission is unlikely to give the governor candidates that he or she is unwilling to appoint.
Do you think this has to do a lot with, we talked to a lot of experts in this field. Of course, we heard from the Sedgwick County District Attorney Mark Bennett, who was really speaking on his own behalf, of course not on behalf of the entire District Attorney's Office, saying that I don't believe that politics should play a part in the judicial process. It should not be something in the court system. And it feels like the voters overwhelmingly agree with that as well.
I think you could say that, but we should remember here that this amendment was extremely complicated, that you and I can say, well, it was a simple choice of either electing the state Supreme Court or continuing the current appointment system. But to do that, you have to change it, you have to give the voters lots and lots of constitutional language to change, and all of that is really difficult for a voter to
I think it's
slog
very
through.
difficult to understand, because as reporters, we go through this, and anchors try to explain it as well. We can try to break it down as easy as we possibly can, but when a voter goes into the booth or sees the ballot and flips it over and sees all the language that's in it, that's very overwhelming. It could be very confusing. A lot of people might just skip past some of the wording and real language in it. So it's very hard to accomplish something like that, especially for a constitutional amendment, when it can appear confusing for the voters.
Right, and what is going to be interesting in this race is actually how many voters voted in the constitutional amendment vote compared to other races, because we have a pretty long ballot here in Kansas. That when I voted today, I got to vote for, and I happened to pull a Democratic ballot, or when I voted in the Democratic primary, that I got to vote for contested governor race, contested congressional race, contested state representative, but then scroll through a bunch of slots for county judges that have no Democrats running, where I could write somebody in if I wanted to take that amount of time, and then finally get to the constitutional amendment. And it is certain that less people will vote in the race than it voted in the governor race. But what we could be seeing is that the ballot fatigue that some voters have was that the conservatives were feeling that more. And one thing, if it turns out that no wins by a lot, it could show something that we see in American politics now, which is the Democrats and the left in general have the best possible coalition for low turnout elections. They have a lot of voters who want to pay attention to politics, want to vote as often as they can. And that's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you do well in constitutional amendment elections. We've seen in Wisconsin they do well when there are judicial elections up there. But when it comes to elections in November, that's a whole different group of people. And just because you have a bunch of people who spend 5 hours a day thinking about politics, as the core of your coalition, that doesn't win you general elections in November.
Something I want to point out here, and we can take back the KWCH website right now. It has the active voting numbers coming in. Of course, we're looking now at the Democratic primary to see who will face off against Ty Masterson in the general election for Kansas governor. Cindy Holscher right now, the lead getting a little bit larger for her. It's looking like it is about 6,500 votes right now. Cindy Holscher, 47% of the vote. Ethan Corson, second there with 41%. That's just, again, just over 50% of the vote here. So, again, right now on our KWCH website, we have all of the races that have appeared on all the ballots all across the state. We have a lot, of course, the State House taking up a lot of that as well. But we have sales tax, we have county commissioners, we have bond issues as well. Of course, we're still waiting for those results to come in from other places as well. The El Dorado 1% sales tax, yes, on that one so far. But let's just go through some of them here. What has stuck out to you so far throughout the night? Any race in particular?
Well, if you scroll to the Democratic State House, so we need to go down and look at around districts 83, 84, that if we notice that that former mayor and former state representative Brandon Whipple currently has a lead on Henry Helgerson, it looks like that there's more votes that have come in from early votes, and it does make sense that those would favor former representative, former Mayor Whipple, that he's had a very energetic campaign there, that in the 84th district, the massive lead that Benita Gooch has over the incumbent Representative Carr is very interesting, and that these races are unlikely to shift the balance of power in Topeka. But it always matters who is in state legislative races, and because where on big votes like the one to put the judicial selection amendment on the ballot, final votes on the budget, it often is a party line vote. But on the medium and smaller issues and the process issues, it really matters who's in the room, and even what representative you have from the safest Democratic district possible.
So this is, we're looking at some of the other races here. Of course, this is the primary, so it gears us up for the general election in 2 months. So really, for a lot of these candidates, it all kind of restarts for them, right? They build on the momentum they had so far already. What are you anticipating as we get now and start slowly anticipating and getting ready for the general election?
Well, I mean, the candidates are going to have to do a lot of the same things they've been doing. They have to raise money so that they can buy advertising. If they're lucky, pay a large staff. That's going to be very difficult for state representative candidates. And the traditional thing to do after the primary is to try to pivot to running more to the center, to appeal to moderate voters and to appeal to voters who didn't vote in the primary. But American politics in recent years has been more about mobilization and less about persuasion, meaning it's more about getting your own base to turn out than necessarily appealing to people in the middle. But when you have so much of the electorate locked in on one side or the other, even if the middle is smaller, they still decide races. And but on the statewide level, my guess is still the most competitive races are going to be governor and attorney general. Mm-hmm. Attorney general, there's only one candidate for the Republicans, one for the Democrats, and so that's not contested today. But and for the Democrats, assuming it is Senator Holscher, then we're going to have a test of whether a clearly identified liberal candidate can be competitive statewide in Kansas.
And as we've been showing Cindy Holscher right now, that lead expanding a little bit more as those votes have come in. Of course, Dr. Allen providing great insight to all these races while we're looking ahead now that we are starting to get a lot of those votes in for the primary election and looking ahead to the general election as well. Real quick, of course, we are live right now. We are streaming, but once to check in, Jacob, I see on the prompter there, it says a cut-in. Do we have a cut-in?
Mike is handling the cut in studio.
Okay, so we're good here.
We are good here. We can take a break anytime you guys want. We'll go right up to the 9 o'clock
Okay,
newscast.
Doctor. Okay, so we didn't just hear Jacob there. We are staying with you to the top of the 9 o'clock hour. Of course, the votes will still be coming in. Then we will join our regular newscast starting on the KSCW at 9 o'clock. That'll be for a full hour. We will have continuous coverage of all of this, more talks with Dr. Allen, more breaking down the individual races. I know right now with the website, if you go on it, it can be a little bit overwhelming just because there's so many races out there. We're going to break down them individually. We have, again, reporters from around the state at different watch parties. We have already listened into several of them so far. We will continue to check in with all of them as well. Also, you can download our 12 News app. Again, this is where we are streaming at. You can catch all of that. It's also where you can catch all of the election results. We have it there on the homepage. We also have a campaign 2026 where you can see all these results as well. So one, thank you for being with us through all of this as well. We're going to give Dr. Allen a water break a little bit. He's been talking a lot, carrying a lot for us. We'll come back, final little wrap up before we start the 9 o'clock news with what we've seen so far, any standouts, preparing for the general election, and then we'll start with the 9 o'clock newscast. Welcome back to 12 News Connected. Of course, it is our election special. We are looking at the results for the primary election. A lot of races have been called so far. A lot of races are still close. We're still waiting for the votes to come in there. Of course, we want to show you where KWCH.com right now on our website. That's where we have all the voting numbers up to date for you. You can go check that out anytime. Of course, the biggest one we're looking at, race for Kansas governor. On the GOP side, Ty Masterson, that race has already been called. Ty Masterson will represent the Republicans for Kansas governor. On the Democratic side, Sidney Holscher, Ethan Corson have been fairly close all throughout the night. Right now, it's growing a little bit in Sidney Holscher's favor. Looks like it's about 6,500 votes separating Sidney and Ethan at this time. The way the numbers are shaping out right now, and again for the Democratic primary for governor, about 53.5% of the votes estimated to have come in right now. When you look at these numbers here, whether it is Sidney Holscher or Ethan Corson, what are we looking at in terms of the general election for governor? Are we getting ready for a tight race there?
I would say that Masterson starts out as the clear favorite, and that there has been every 8-year alternation between the two parties in Kansas for several decades. I don't think that pattern tells us that the Republicans are going to win. It's just that Kansas leans Republican. Now, Masterson is not a moderate. He has been a strong conservative leader in the state Senate, and a very effective one, not just at marshaling his caucus, but also at changing who his caucus was. And so has been a very good fundraiser for his allies in the state Senate. Now, a statewide race is a whole different animal there. And so Masterson is someone who has never run statewide, that in the fall we should expect him to do very well in rural areas, as every Republican does, probably do a little bit better than your average Republican here around Wichita. But the real question in Kansas politics is, how well can Democrats do in Northeast Kansas, which is where the population growth is, and Democrats have to dominate there. And both Corson and Holscher are from that area. If it's Holscher, she will be a very good example of where Northeast Kansas is going, which is to look much more like a national Democratic leaning area. But still, that is not the majority of Kansas. And so far, in every race statewide except for governor the last 2 times, Republicans have avoided getting blown out so badly in Johnson County and around Lawrence and Topeka that they lost. But right now, if I had to guess, I would be expecting, that Masterson to be somewhere in the mid-50s of the two-party vote in the fall.
We know that there are a lot of races that have been called so far. Again, still some we're watching. And we're looking at the votes of estimated votes that have come in. For the GOP side for governor, it's still 42.7. For the Democratic side, it's still 53.9. So we still have a long ways to go for some of these votes to come in. So while some of the races have been called, the numbers and percentage-wise can look a bit different when it's all said and done in terms of it. We did talk about the constitutional amendment. That was the other big thing we were looking at for this primary election. That would be for the state Supreme Court, how the judges are placed on the state Supreme Court. Vote no keeps the current system in place that we've had since, I believe, 1958 is what it is, where there is a commission that basically selects 3 judicial candidates, and then the governor picks. The governor just recently added another one to the state Supreme Court as well. Again, vote no overwhelmingly. It's almost about 100,000 vote difference. Again, that one, votes are still coming in there. That one's already been called. Still overwhelmingly no. What does that say, though? I know we talked about the gap there and the impact of the gap there, but what does that speak to maybe where things are Kansas politic-wise for that to be voted no?
Well, I think one thing it shows is that Kansas is a state that is more conservative than it is than you might think in terms of keeping the political system and our public policies where they are. And so in the last almost 15 years since the 2010 elections, where Republicans swept everything, Governor Brownback won almost 2-1, Democrats lost state House seats, and that it looked like that Kansas might look like much more like Wyoming than it would like it has. But what has happened is that Republicans have clearly overreached in the last 15 or so years on cutting back on school funding, and that, frankly, in times of low state budgets, now the state budget is better and they've had more success in pushing through some tax cuts. But Democrats are going to try to make the fall elections about public school funding and about stopping Kansas from becoming a far-right state. But I would expect that Kansas isn't a, you might say, some people like to say purple state. Kansas is more of a 60-40 Republican state, except if you can get a Kansas voter to think about a few issues where, like women's reproductive rights, support for public school funding, then the Democrats can do much better.
All right, the time now is 8:50. We are 10 minutes out till our 9 p.m. newscast on the KSCW. Again, we will have a full breakdown of all this. We're also checking in with the watch parties from all around the state. We are at the watch party for Ron Estes and Ty Masterson, Sidney Holscher as well, and of course other ones throughout the state. So we will have live shots, live reaction throughout all this. Thank you for being with us for the last hour, 45 minutes, hour 30 minutes as we started all this. Dr. Allen, I appreciate the time. We're not done with Dr. Allen just yet. He will be in our 9 p.m. newscast again on the KSCW. That is a full hour long, and then we'll have our normal 10 p.m. newscast on KWCH as well. So again, thank you for joining us through all this. Again, all of the election results, what we have so far with all the votes coming in on our website. You can see the races that have already been called, what is still out there, what are we monitoring closely, and we will have all of that at the top of the hour on the KSCW. Thanks to you.